They're new ones.
The question is, are they improved? I guess that's what
They're
we're talking
improved
about.
if I hold this piece of paper at the right spot.
Well, that's the
That's
difference
the
with
way it
the
is.
glasses, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Anyway, the last time we met a couple of weeks ago, I started a series on judgment. And I realized this is not a popular topic, okay? It's just not. But it's what I feel like we needed to look at because we don't ever look at it. And we looked at the scriptures a little bit from a historical sense about if you were an Egyptian, Passover was not a happy day. Maybe you remember that. Because the Egyptians were under judgment while the Israelites were being set free. We talked about the fact that when judgment comes, frequently, not always, but frequently, God makes a separation between his people and the rest of the people. Israel and Egypt is a good example of that. At the same time, frequently in judgment, not everybody goes all the way through alive. And I'm talking about believers, right? Think about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and Daniel. They went through alive. But their parents had obviously trained them right, and there's no record that they lived. No record that they died either. But my point being that we don't necessarily have a guarantee when evil comes that we're going to physically live through it. Our guarantee is that we will spiritually live through it, and it won't be the end for us. Anyway, same with Noah and his family. God selected them out and protected them. It's one family out of the whole earth. That is not very many. Not very many. Okay, so maybe in a couple of weeks we'll talk about end-time judgments like the Great White Throne Judgment and all that, but that's not what I want to do right now. I want to look at the kind of judgment that we are enduring right now in this nation and indeed in the globe, and recognize that the purpose of that kind of judgment is that we would turn our hearts back to God. It's a sign of his patience. He can't do nothing. But the law would say he should stamp us to oblivion, right? We should be completely eliminated. But that is frequently not what he does. Nevertheless, he judges us, and there's a consequence. So we're going to look at some of the first judgments tonight. We're going to start in Genesis 3:14 through 19, which would be the very first one. And as I'm doing this, I want you to just think about what does judgment look like for a nation. Not final judgment, but God's intervention to change our hearts. And what does it look like for us? Because they're the same pattern that he uses. Okay, Genesis 3:14 through 19, except I'm going to start at verse 8. They heard the sound of the Lord walking in the garden in the cool of the day. And the man and his wife hid themselves from the presence of the Lord among the trees of the garden. Then the Lord called to the man and said to him, "Where are you?" He said, "I heard the sound of you in the garden, and I was afraid, because I was naked, so I hid myself." And he said, "Who told you you were naked? Have you eaten from the tree of which I commanded you not to eat?" The man said, "The woman whom you gave me to be with me, she gave me of the tree, and I ate." Then the Lord said to the woman, "What is it you've done?" And the woman said, "The serpent deceived me, and I ate." And then the Lord said to the serpent, "Because you have done this, cursed are you more than all the cattle, and more than every other beast of the field. On your belly you will go, and dust you will eat all the days of your life. And I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your seed and her seed. He shall bruise you on the head, and you shall bruise him on the heel." To the woman he said, "I will greatly multiply your pain in childbirth. In pain you will bring forth children. Yet your desire will be for your husband, and he will rule over you." Then to Adam he said, "Because you've listened to the voice of your wife, and have eaten from the tree which I commanded you not to eat, cursed is the ground because of you. In toil you will eat of it all the days of your life. Both thorns and thistles it shall grow for you, and you will eat the plants of the field. By the sweat of your face you will eat bread, till you return to the ground, because from it you were taken, for you are dust, and to dust you shall return. Now, all of us know this story about Adam and the fall. These verses, though, were the pronouncement from God of the judgment he issued to all three creatures in the story. And he issued the judgment kind of in order of the sin, if you will. So he started with the serpent. And he said, you're confined to the dust of the earth. And that basically that you're lower than every other animal on the face of the earth. Okay, I guess that's true. Before this, the serpent had legs, apparently, because he didn't slither around on his belly. I don't know what he looked like. There's not a description. But he clearly was talking with Eve as if it was a normal thing to do. Snakes don't talk to me. They better not either. I'll have to get a concealed carry permit if they start talking with, I don't know, 10 gauge buckshot or something. I don't know what you'd use. But anyway, things changed. The snake was greatly demoted in his appearance on the earth. He went from being kind of an exalted creature that we don't have a description of to one that nobody really wants to hang around with. I mean, you don't find rabbits going up to talk to snakes. You know that, right? You don't find that. You don't really find any animals that are intentionally not bothered by a snake. Dogs bark at them, right? Mongooses go after them. It's not like they've got a bunch of friends in the animal kingdom, all right? It's not like squirrel and rabbit can be side by side, nothing's going to happen. A horse and a squirrel can be side by side, nothing's going to happen. Put a snake by that horse. Not usually a good thing. So that happened. That was the curse, a curse on this snake, on the serpent, I should say. Okay. The second thing was there would be a permanent division and divisiveness between the snake and mankind. You know, God said there'll be enmity between you and all the offspring of the woman. Well, enmity means they don't like each other. This is a Hatfield and McCoy type situation that God's placed into the earth. So division was placed into the earth as a result of this. And I mean, there are some people that like snakes, and they're insane asylums for those people. What can I say? I'm kidding, obviously, but you know, it's not a normal reaction for most people. All right, and then of course this is the first prophecy of Jesus Christ coming. The snake will bruise Christ's heel, but he will crush the snake's head. So Genesis 3:15 is that prophecy. All right, second, let's look at the curse that occurred on the woman. Greatly increased pain in childbirth. I would tell you a story about our first child, but I won't. Let's just say that my spouse was not enamored with the experience, I guess would be the kind way to say it. And I think I'll stop there. I might get in trouble if I don't stop there. So. Oh yeah, oh yeah. I'm not sure how she felt about me for a few months, but anyway. This is not just pain in labor, but realize that miscarriages began with this. Loss of children began with this. Defects, genetic defects, all began with this. It began with sin. Didn't exist before, wasn't going to exist until this sin occurred. Nevertheless, the desire to reproduce and to be intimate with her husband would still remain and be strong. I think this is more than just of sexual intimacy. Now, this is my opinion. You can follow this or not. I think it was that need to be attached, to be a part. Guess it was one of the marriage seminars we went to when we were a whole lot younger than we are now. When we were first married, the person explained, the teacher explained that a woman's trying always to be part of a man, to come together. Men are less likely to share. I'm far less likely to share my day's experiences than my wife is. Way less likely. I just kind of want to put them aside, forget about those arguments at work, let them go. She, however, would like to know every detail. That's not bad. It's just different. But I think it comes from this verse, that there's a need to be attached that was put there that wasn't there before. The last thing is that her husband would now rule over her. Now, I don't mean as a monarchy or anything like that. Those of you that are husbands, I strongly suggest, as a matter of self-preservation, that you not go around with a scepter in your hand saying to your wife, I rule over you. That would be incredibly stupid. Some of us try and do that, but it's incredibly stupid. This verse in no way implies that a woman is not as valuable as a man. It's kind of like, though, what God did to the serpent, reducing his level of authority. Can't say that I understand it all, but there was a change. And I just ask you to realize there was a change somehow in status. And then lastly, the curse upon Adam. Now this one is really weird to me, right? It says, cursed is the ground because of you. Wait, let's get this straight. The snake lost his legs, right? And he's scurrying around on the dirt. The curse was on the snake. The woman's curse, or the repercussion, the judgment, let's use judgment rather than curse, was also with her physical body. And Adam, God didn't say anything about his physical body, other than he's going to die, he'll return to dust. He cursed the ground. Now, if I were the ground, I'd be mad. Why did he do that? God's purpose for Adam, as stated in the chapter previous, chapter 2, is that he would manage the Garden of Eden. He was responsible for managing the earth, or being the chief gardener of the earth. So Adam's purpose was impacted. His ability to complete his assignment was greatly impacted. His authority level was also lowered in this thing. The labor required in his job would change. But at the same time, the earth itself physically changed. I would really like it if I thought I could go pray over my yard and all the weeds would die and never come back. That would be really great. Or one of the things my wife wants me to do is edge a certain part of the backyard. And I'm willing to do that. It's not a problem. But you know what? I can edge it this week, and it'll need edging next week, and the week after, and the week after, and the week after. Because that's the nature of it. That wasn't the nature of it before the fall. It just wasn't. So anyway, Adam's work would require sweat, meaning his effort, and pain. And if you've ever tilled the ground with a hoe, and I think everybody in here has, that can be a painful experience, particularly if you're out there all day doing it. Then Adam would die and decompose back into dust. When he was formed before the fall, there was no life expectancy. There was no best if served by date. God basically designed us to live eternal life at first creation. The introduction of sin brought death, and it put a throwaway date on us, if you will, the time we were going to return to the earth. And that date changed, by the way, as sin increased in the world. I don't know that I'll share that, but God made several adjustments along the way that are recorded in the scripture. And then, of course, Adam and Eve were ultimately kicked out of the garden, so they lost God's presence. All right, in each of these cases of judgment, the root of what happened is the measure of God's grace on each of the creatures was drastically reduced. It was not taken away in its entirety. It was just decreased. It was decreased. And we find as sin increases, God's grace that's visible decreases. Okay, now let's go to the second judgment. This is Cain and Abel. You know the story of Cain and Abel, I guess, right? This is Genesis 4, so it's just one more chapter over. Then the Lord said to Cain, "Where is Abel your brother?" And he said, "I don't know. Am I my brother's keeper?" He said, "What have you done?" "The voice of your brother's blood is crying out to me from the ground. Now you are cursed from the ground, which has opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. When you cultivate the ground, it will no longer yield its strength to you. You are to be a vagrant and a wanderer over the earth." Cain said to the Lord, "My punishment is too great to bear. Behold, you've driven me this day from the face of the ground, and from your face I will be hidden, and I will be a vagrant and a wanderer on the earth, and whoever finds me will kill me." All right, there's several things I want to point out here. Now, God did give him a promise that whoever found him wouldn't kill him. The first is that the ground, the earth, soaked up Abel's blood. Now, we just kind of think of that as, okay, that's kind of normal. But the way God described it is not what we would consider normal. Because it says the ground cried out. The blood from the ground cried out. And then God said to him that the ground opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood. Now, that's weird. I want you to think about that just a little bit. We're gonna hit this topic several more times, and I know it's obtuse. It's out there. But it's a fact that we're not exposed to. We need to understand a little bit because it applies to our culture. So the ground was cursed because of the blood that was shed. And I think I'll leave it at that. There's a relationship between man and the earth, a direct relationship between man and the earth. And it's more than we just get to walk on the earth and we're made out of dirt, okay? We saw it in the curse on Adam. Then God increased for Cain the difficulty of getting anything out from the earth. He made it absolutely impossible. Now, my wife's got a green thumb. I'm sure Jane's got a green thumb. They can make anything grow, kind of at any time. Me, not so much, but I know if I go out and I till the garden and I plant some seeds and I water it, that something's going to come up. May not be this great lush harvest, but something's going to come up. In Cain's case, God's saying, I don't care what you do. The ground will yield nothing for you, not anything at all. Wow, that's remarkable. That's an evidence of a curse and a judgment, and we'll see that in Deuteronomy later. He was also to wander across the earth. Now, in our civilized culture and classifying groups, we'd say he became a hunter-gatherer, except for the fact that there wasn't any hunting then. Man didn't eat animals at this point in time. He just wandered the earth, picked up acorns or whatever it is he did to survive. It's a really different thing, and he left the presence of God entirely. Cain's wandering also mirrors a description of Satan himself from Job chapter 1. I want to just read that to you. And I do want, I'm very strongly saying these two things go together. This is verse 6 in chapter 1. Now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came among them. The Lord said to Satan, "From where do you come?" Then Satan answered the Lord and said, from roaming about the earth and walking on it. What was the description of Cain? A vagabond, wandering around. What was the description of Satan here? His own self-description? Roaming about the earth and walking on it? He didn't stop in any place. He just kept going. That characteristic let's just say we find it in people a lot. We know it if you think about it. You know some people that can't ever really settle down at all. It's evidence of a curse in their life. Okay, the last judgment we'll consider tonight, and don't worry at this point. I don't intend to cover every judgment lifted in the Bible. Okay, we would be here for an awful long time. It'd be really boring. But we're going to look at Noah. Now, in Genesis chapter 6 through 9, this is covered. Mankind at this point had slipped even further into depravity. There were certainly some righteous people. Enoch was in this time. Methuselah was in this time. I think Lamech was Noah's dad. He was in this time. Civilization had taken place. There were already iron workers and metal workers and musicians and musical instruments and livestock breeding and other high skill levels that are mentioned in I guess chapter 5 of Genesis. However, in Genesis chapter 6, and a lot of people disagree with this, but the way it reads, it sounds like that angels intermarried with human women. Maybe I should read that. So that you Okay, 6:1. Now it came about when men began to multiply on the face of the land, and daughters were born to them, that the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were beautiful, and they took wives for themselves, whomever they chose. Then the Lord said, My spirit shall not strive with man forever, because he is also flesh. Nevertheless, his days shall be 120 years. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days. Those were giants. And also afterward, when the sons of God came into the daughters of men, they bore children to them. These were the mighty men who were of old, men of renown. All right, then the Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great on the earth, and that every intent and thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. The Lord was sorry he had made man on the earth, and he was grieved in his heart. And the Lord said, I will blot out man whom I have created from the face of the land, from the man to animals, to creeping things, and to the birds of the sky, for I'm sorry that I have made them. But Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. Kind of a tough passage. There are other references to this. I just read you one in Job, and the description of the sons of God came before the throne, and Satan was sitting there. So, I mean, there's a real strong case for this being fallen angels intermarrying with women. But in any case, mankind had become totally corrupt. The earth was completely filled with violence, and he says that the intent of man's heart was constantly on evil. So that's as low down as you can get. And God's answer to that judgment was not brief, let's say. It wasn't easy. He destroyed, except for Noah and his family, every person on the face of the earth. He destroyed, except for those that were on the ark, every animal that walked on the face of the earth. He destroyed every bird on the face of the earth, every insect, everything. It doesn't say fish, okay? I guess fish can survive a flood, but, we don't know. And he changed the entire appearance of the earth. If you read the details of the flood, I wasn't going to do that tonight. it indicates that there was a canopy of water above the earth. And you may remember from the garden, it says the earth was watered by mist. Well, rain first occurred when Noah got on the ark. Nobody had seen rain before. The canopy of water, apparently over the earth, began to fall out. At exactly the same time, it says that there was water underneath the surface of the ground, and it erupted out. And there was a collision. Now, I don't on the top of my head remember how tall above sea level Mount Arad is, but it's a lot more than about 100 feet. You know, it's probably, I'm going to guess 6,000 or 7,000 feet. I don't know. I don't know what it is, but it's measured in thousands, not a few. If you had 2,000 feet of water in your backyard, and somebody pulled the drain plug in the middle of your yard, what's it going to look like when all the water's gone? What's it going to look like? Maybe the Grand Canyon, right? There's going to be a lot of erosion. There's going to be a lot of shifting going on. You know what a hurricane does, and that's only 10 or 15 feet of water. What does 1,000 feet do? It's beyond our comprehension. My point is, the judgment was very drastic. The grace of God was still there, but it was just enough to preserve a remnant of life. I think we'll stop there for the night. And I know this doesn't leave you with anything to hang your hat on. You're wondering, why in the world are we doing this? Bear with me a few weeks, and you'll see. The things I would like for you to walk away with is the ground is impacted by sin. The ground is actually described as being polluted by sin. And it's not just a buzzword. It's not an allegorical word. It's a true pollution that the ground endures. So when we look around today and we see pollution, we think, well, it's the train tracks, or it's the government, or it's the evil companies, or we shouldn't be doing these chemicals, or it's the cows, or whatever nonsense we come up with. But the truth really is, it's a result of our own sin. It's a result of us going our own way. Now, yes, that might mean if we didn't walk in sin, we would do a better job managing the earth. Probably does mean that, right? Because you'd be doing it with God's idea instead of your own. But sin is the root cause of pollution. Sin is the root cause of the Sahara Desert. Think about that. Totally desolate. If you're an Arab and you read about Cain, I say an Arab, I'm using that loosely, okay? If you're a North African Arab and you read about Cain, that the ground would not produce for him, might you wonder if you lived in the Sahara Desert? You probably should wonder. Now, I'm not saying that that particular Arab is responsible, don't misunderstand me, but I'm saying sin is what caused that. Sin is what caused that, and we need to understand that. That was not God's original intent, unless he was just doing it for design purposes, which he certainly has a right to do. Sin causes death, and we're gonna look at some more of that. I'll try and get a little further next time, but I just want you to know that every creature on the earth and the earth itself are directly impacted by sin, by mankind's sin, by national sin. And when we as a nation sin, our nation is impacted. It comes kind of like the judgment did on Adam and Eve, not all at once, but it comes gradually. But it's here. It's here. So I hope that is at least a little helpful. You know, if you want to do some homework, go look up stuff on the ground and sin, or the ground and pollution, and see what you come up with. I think you'll be shocked. All right? Bill, you want to pass the hat real quick?